Okay, so we're gonna start in 1 minute. I think most of the people joined in, and welcome everyone to the another Sales Coach webinar. It's been running already over a month. We are meeting every Tuesday and Thursday at 4:30 Central European Time. I'm happy to see a lot of new faces and people joining us from all over the world. That's a good thing. The news are getting better. Most of the countries are starting to ease down the quarantine restrictions. I hear from many places people start to go back on the water, and we are slowly getting back into the normal life. It's still not at where we've been 2 months before, but it's going to a better place. So today I want to introduce our new guest. It's a special guest, and it's not much needs to be told about, but it's a person from China, Lijia Xu. She has a nickname Golden Lily. So welcome, Lily.
Hello everyone, my name is Lijia Xu, and you can just call me Lily. Thank you for joining today's Sales Coach webinar, and hope to share some of my story to you all.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining our webinar. I'm basically organizing some technical meetings once a week, and also trying to bring some special guests. And why do we bring those special guests? Is mainly just to inspire, to share the experience, and we want to hear some of the preparations people already done, and maybe we can implement it in the real world and what is happening right now. So thank you, Lily. We go ahead and we are going to be just running as an interview. I'm going to be just questioning, and Lily is going to give us her experiences. So first, we are going to go into your background, and I would ask you a question like, how did you come into sailing, and what happened, and which boat you started with? I know a little bit more about your childhood background, but please you share with us your first steps into the sailing.
Yeah, I was born in Shanghai in 1987, and then when I was 10 years old, the Shanghai Sailing Optimist coach introduced this sport to me, and then trying to encourage my parents and sent me to join one of the training camp. And that's how I started the first experience in sailing. So we had a 2-week training camp with a group of other peers together, and we lived together, and then for 2 weeks, and then I couldn't feel happier to spend some time away from my parents. But the most what I enjoy the most is, of course, being on a boat, even though before that trip I had no idea what sailing is. And my parents didn't know anything about sailing either. So there's lots of mystery, and then lots of question marks in our mind. But we just set out and trying to be really open-minded. And then the moment I tried sailing, I just feel, oh, that's much more fun than swimming, which I used to practice every day in the past. So from the age of 5 to 10, I do swimming every day. And then as soon as I tried sailing, I just say to my parents, I don't want to go back to swimming anymore, because it was so boring, just in a swimming pool, very limited swimming line to and back, where sailing every day is fresh, every day is different. There's no two such races will be exactly the same. And then we're being very close to the nature, despite the fact sometimes not very good weather. But I just really love the peace and the freedom, and being in harmony with my boat. And so, yeah, after that training camp, I become one of the 3 girls that's being selected to join the team. But my parents weren't so pleased with that good news. Why? because they knew that if I choose sailing, that means I would be away from them most of the time. Whereas while swimming, I can still go back every day and see them and then live with them. But for sailing, if I choose that, it means that I have to travel with the team. For example, in the winter, we do our winter training camp in southern China, which is warmer than Shanghai. And then during summertime, we will have our racing season up north. So we only got the chance to go back once a year for about 1 or 2 weeks holiday. So for sure, as a one-child family, my parents find it too difficult to accept. But eventually they gave me the decision. Well, they gave me the chance to make my own decision, which I feel very appreciated. Because I said to them, wow, sailing is just so much more fun than swimming. I think there's no doubt in my heart that I would much prefer sailing instead of doing anything else. So yeah, that's how decisions being made. And then I remember my father just said to me, Lily, this is your own decision. You've got to remember whatever happens in the future, whether any difficulties or challenges or setbacks, you can't give up because that's your own decision. But as a 10-year-old girl, I sort of understand, but I would say I don't really understand. I just nodded and very happy that I'm going to sail. Yeah. And the first boat I sailed was Optimist. And then I really enjoyed that. I sailed 5 years and winning all the events possible. From the world's Asians to nationals, from the individuals or team racing, etc. I think Opti is really a good boat to build your basic techniques and then as well as tactics. And then later on, I really benefited a lot from my Opti years.
I'm actually having a small question. Like we were doing some interviews with another top athletes, and you are one of the few sailors in history who were at the top in the optimist level, and you actually been able to transfer all these achievements and the results to the senior level. Usually what I find that a lot of optimist sailors who were performing at a young age, they were not able to shine on the next level. So that's an interesting example where you took from the childhood this winning mentality and you brought it forward. That's one of the rare things. Usually the people who are more in the middle of the fleet, they would continue to the Olympic level and they would prove to the rest of the world that they were much better than that what people believed in. You were quite a famous optimist sailor in the old days because you were the only girl who won the 2 times world championship, and you also were doing really well in the boys fleet. You were nearly beating the whole boys fleet. So that was a really, really good performance, and good you've shared with us this stuff. And another, you mentioned that you started from swimming. Since you joined the sailing, did you continue swimming or you completely stopped with your
I completely
swimming?
stopped because I can't do 2 at the same time. And as I mentioned, I have to travel with the team. So all year round, I'm in the Shanghai sailing team. Whenever they are outside Shanghai or back to Shanghai, I have to be with the team. And then only 1 week holiday a year. And just to add a few more notes about what you mentioned earlier, what you noticed, the trend of performing well in optimist years but not so good later on. I think one of the reasons I noticed is, for example, these years or previous few years, the Asian countries doing really well. For example, Thailand, Singapore, as well as some Chinese sailors. But considering the amount of time those countries put in much more than, for example, European sailors, and they still carry on studying normally, whereas, for example, in China, we sort of nearly stopped study completely and only do some self-studying and then online study, for example. But for Singapore, I'm sure the schools spending a lot of time for them to spare in sailing, because that's one of the, I think the sport, optimist is one of the sport that they trying really hard to promote, and the same as Thailand. I do feel a little bit sorry though that all those top optimist Asian sailor didn't manage to shine, as you said, later on in their Olympic years. And hopefully there can be more examples like me in the future, not just shining when they're a teenager, but also, or more importantly, to get more medals in the Olympic or even professional sailing circuit.
Thanks for that, and hopefully it will inspire some of the Asian sailors. I think that studying is putting so much pressure on them, and sometimes it's just taking them away from the sports. But you will share with us later about how you balance your studies. But now we are going to go to the next question. And I was reading your profile on the Wikipedia just to have a bit of more information, and we saw a lot of things were happening with you between each Olympic cycle, and one of the first thing was mentioned that you missed the Olympic Games in Athens. First of all, it was quite an early age for already being able to participate at the Olympic Games, but you also had to miss it. And could you explain what happened and how you were coping with those health issues?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and can I mention to everyone who's joining in this webinar to encourage guests to write down your questions whenever you have any in the chat window. So when we finish one topic, I can answer some of the questions. And then, of course, towards the end, we have some Q&A time as well. So to answer the question 2, I had a tumor on my left leg bone at the end of 2002 when I finished my optimist years. And then I was suggested by my doctor to have an operation to have it removed. But I was really reluctant to do it, because I knew if I choose to do the operation, that means I will need a year's recovery and then I will miss the trials. And that's why I said to the doctor, no, I'm not going to do the operation, because that was just a suggestion from the doctor. But all the rest of the adults, whether my parents, my coaches or leaders, they all trying to persuade me, say, Lily, hey, you have a long future ahead of you. Don't be short-sighted. Don't just look at the hair in front of your forehead. You need to look for the long future and not to risk your life in a short term. So yeah, I remember it was the Christmas Eve, though we don't have a holiday, but we still have some celebration. And then I had operation on the 24th of December in 2002. And then when I was pushing out of the operation room or the theater, and then I couldn't help noticing it, because it was already dark and it was snowing outside, which was quite rare to Shanghai. And the whole night was so slow. I've never lived my life so slow, because I was in such a big pain. And then later on, yeah, I spent a year of sailing and then just focusing on my study as well as my recovery. I remember when I first restarted to running, to do some fitness training, I was a little bit wobbly, not so smoothly. And when I first tried to bend my legs after operation, it just couldn't do anything. And then at that time, I doubt whether I will be able to go back to sailing again. But it was actually at that time, when I nearly missed the sailing, that I realized, wow, I've already fallen in deep love with sailing. My life cannot carry on without sailing. So yeah, as quite often people said, it was not until when you missed something that you realized how precious it is. I think the positive thing drawing out from that experience was, one, it made me realize how much I love sailing. And then later on, when I got the chance to sail again, I cherish every single training session and improved my quality of both sailing and fitness training, because I feel they are so precious. There were times I really want to train, but I couldn't. But once I can, I won't let any opportunity slide away. And the second thing is I really used that time to improve my English, which later on opened the door for me to see this world and then get to know more about the sailing world instead of just burying myself inside Chinese knowledge of sailing. So that was actually, when I look back, it may, in a way, it may help me to become a better sailor later on. And then the other thing about myself was my hearing. I was born half deaf. So I remember when I was little, I was quite often being joked or taunted by my teammates or by my classmates. And then I wasn't able to engage with their chat or play with them because I couldn't understand what they say. And gradually I become more introvert and then just sort of bury my head to myself. But it was sailing that gives me the chance to feel that I'm equal to everybody else. Whereas on shore, I feel I'm always shorter than everybody else because I can't hear what you said clearly, and then people laugh at me. But while sailing, it doesn't matter I can't hear something. What matters is who sail faster. So I feel, oh, okay, that's a good platform that I can do something and to show that I'm an able person. So yeah, that was another blessing in disguise. And yeah, and then for my eyes, my left eye couldn't see things clearly, but my right eye is okay. But the overall usage of my eyes of reading or watching things is quite limited compared with ordinary people. So yeah, that was all the shortage of my body or my health problems. And then when I was little, I did complain a lot. I did say why God's so unfair to me and why I can't be as equal as other kids. But it was, again, sailing, which taught me to be more grateful, to be more positive, and to embrace what we have. So nowadays, I'm really grateful for what my body can allow me to do, things, anything, focus on the things I can do instead of things I couldn't. Yeah, that's why I say sailing is such a great sport, and I couldn't have been more grateful than taking or meet this sport for my life.
Thank you, Lily. Actually, you pointed up at really good stuff when you were at the operation table, and then when you were taken away from the sailing, you really started to appreciate it. And probably that's how everyone feels right now, because we are all taking away from our favorite sport, and we will change a lot of things in our mindset because we've been artificially limited and we don't have access. So a lot of people now we realize what we had, and it might change a lot of people's life after this quarantine, the approach to their sailing career and how they're gonna continue their trainings. So thank you for sharing this stuff with us. We are gonna see if there are any questions. There one question, if you said a 4.7 after Optimist?
No, I jumped straight to Europe after Optimist because Europe was the Olympic class at the time. And then I stopped 1 year for my operation, but even after Athens Games, I still had to carry on sailing Europe for another year because our national games was at the end of 2005, and then it was not until December 2005 and then that I finally jumped onto a laser radio boat. So no, 4.7, I would say, doesn't even exist in China because China is just very focused or oriented into optimist and then the Olympic sailing, but not much on public sailing or casual sailing or youth sailing. And I'm quite concerned that even optimist will be less and less popular because it's being kicked out of the national games. And originally all the province team in China, they have optimist team or optimist sailors, and now probably only Shanghai sailing team still has optimist. The rest of the provincial team, they don't have optimist because that's out of the national games. I feel quite sad about that.
Yeah, that's quite sad to hear that optimist is losing the numbers. But yeah, knowing the times you shifted from optimist to Europe, there was no 4.7 yet as a big class. It just started in 2002 with the first World Championship itself. So I remember in the 2003, 2004, it was just growing up and you immediately moved forward. But there is another question, and I think it's a very good one because I'm coaching these days, and there are a lot of kids actually sailing with the glasses, and they were asking the question: did you sail with the glasses, or you were sailing without glasses during competitions? Because that's one of the issues where people are struggling a lot to continue sailing with their eyesight, not being able to see very well.
I actually I always sail with glasses, whether even when there's no sun. But my glasses is just plain glasses. It's not it doesn't have any degrees or correction on my lenses, because I have my left eye. The problem with my lazy left eye, whatever lenses my doctor's trying to correct or put on, however thick it is, I still, my left eye still can't see anything, and then my right eye was just as normal. So I would wear glasses, whether like sunny days, dark color lenses, and then cloudy days slightly brighter, and then raining days I will wear glasses as well, because I just don't, one, I want to protect my eyes, and two, I don't like wind blowing into my eyes. I will feel quite sore. So I would suggest that if possible, try to wear glasses whenever sailing, and just get used to it, because for example, if you sail 10, 20, 30 years or for the rest of your lives, it's very important to protect your eyes, just like you should apply some sun cream or sunscreen before you go out. And then just another protection for our eyes. Yeah. Hope that answer helps.
Thank you for that. I'll just speed up a little bit of the questions. I'll join two questions. Like, what was your turning point in the sporting career when people really started to look at Lijia Xu as a really dangerous competitor, and when they started to respect it, and when you started to feel confident in the international? Which regatta or when was this turning point in your career?
I think probably since 2006 World Championship, where I won. I would say quite ironically, after 8 months of being, less than 8 months being on the boat, and even before I know completely about laser radial sailing, I just somehow won the World Championship by sailing a very consistent event, whereas all my opponents, they had either some disqualification or rule 42 or OCS, BFD, and they had some big scores where I just sailed very consistent, and it was that winning that World Championship, I think, let people get to know more about me and then see the talent of my sailing.
Thank you. And moving to the next question, we go straight away into your medals. And you were one of the sailors and probably one of the first sailors who achieved a medal at the Olympic Games in the dinghy sailing, and it was in your home country. How did it feel, and what it was like to achieve a medal back at your home in China?
I would say I was very, very nervous. I couldn't sleep for many nights on the road. That was actually started quite a few weeks before the actual games. I somehow just feel more and more pressures from people. And on one hand, you can see having a home games is an advantage because you get more support and you're more used to the environment or the language or the diet, etc. But on the other hand, imagine that everyone you see, you sort of know each other, because you know lots of Chinese surrounding you, and then every time they see you, they say, "Hey, Lily, win a gold medal. Hey, Lily, cheer up. Hey, Lily, bring us proud, etc." Just all the time, non-stop, like people see you and will say something. I think at that time I wasn't prepared very well mentally, and then somehow just let the pressure hit me quite hard, causing me unable to sleep. But actually, when the games happened, I started to relax a bit more, because I think probably the nervous come quite early, and then allow me have some time to adjust. And then I feel I can't let my life carry on like this. I train so hard, day in, day out, year in, year out. I can't just waste my performance in such an important event by just being nervous and not able to perform. So I said, why not just open and free myself and enjoy and play and have fun, not to worry about anything else. And it was just with that mentality I gradually relaxed and then performed quite well. But to be honest, even though I was constantly winning medals in that Olympic cycle, but I wasn't very good in Qingdao, because that venue's light wind, big waves, strong current, and then my style just couldn't fit in very well, despite I spent a lot of time in training in Qingdao, get to know the venue. But somehow, for example, my weakest part was sailing downwind, and we have very strong current coming against us. And after rounding the mark, all in a sudden, the fleet spread out like a starting line, sailing downwind like a starting line, in a very light wind. And then, I don't have a good feeling in light wind adjustment. So in the end, winning that medal, I would say, again, it was some of my opponents who didn't perform well, and then giving me the chance to win that medal. So it came to me as a surprise. And I think my nation was okay. Some like people who doesn't know me, they will feel disappointed of me not winning gold, because I won the world championship and then constantly getting medals. But people who knew me, they know that. I remember during the test event, I wasn't even top 10. Yeah, so I'm quite happy to go away with a bronze medal, and then be the first one in the history of winning a dinghy medal in China.
And not last thing to mention, probably your age at this Olympics. You were just 21-year-old, and that's a pretty young age for a radial sailor to get the medal. So I don't think it was easy for you, but there are a lot of people here asking exactly this question: how did you manage to handle this pressure? But I think everyone is under pressure in this situation. Probably you just find a little trigger in yourself how to balance it, and just to reduce it by small margin, which was enough for you to get this medal. And that was probably one of the biggest achievements as a Chinese in your hometown to get the medal. It's probably when the people started to look at sailing itself as a sport, and people started to believe in sailing. Yes, probably nobody knew about sailing before in China.
Yeah, and actually, it was after this Olympic Games I started to realize how important the mental toughness is. It was after that that I started to read more books about sports psychology and putting more times in psychological training. Because before that, all my attention goes to or went to fitness training and underwater practice, very little time or attention on psychology. But because of my own experience, and I realized, oh, wow, it can really easily ruin our performance by feeling nervous or not under control or not able to relax. So that's why I started to self-study a little bit about the sports psychology and doing more meditation and apply self-talk on the water, and to remind myself being positive, and then how to deal with accidents, etc. It was over and over rehearsal in my mind that made me dealing more at ease when the crucial time comes.
That's good stuff you mentioned about sports psychology. That's probably where the most of the sailors are facing themselves as well these days, that they are really good, fast sailors. They can race well, but in the important moments, they're missing some small things in their psychology to perform at the top. And you see, you did your self-studying, and these days there is a lot of information, a lot of help from outside, and it's really fast and easy to improve in that area. And
Mm-hmm.
moving forward to a question which is related to your medals, there was one medal which is bronze medal in China, which is very valuable for you, and there is 4 years later another medal which is in London, and it's a gold medal. What do you think, which is the more important one? Because definitely the gold one is more precious, but at the same time, being able to perform at home under pressure, it's also very valuable. What do you think?
I think no doubt the second one, because the first one you can argue, say, oh, it's a home games that actually attract more attention from home fans. But there's also another argument would say, for example, you have lots of Chinese race officials who may be in favor of you. So that's why I have a teammate who won the gold in windsurfing ISX women class, but somehow her medal didn't appear to be attractive as my gold medal 4 years later. And I think winning outside China actually being valued more than in China, and especially well in the UK, because in UK is the best country in the world in Olympic sailing, winning most gold medal among in the globe. And that's why my nation, even my country, felt incredibly proud of getting a sailing medal in the UK, and then therefore select me as the flag bearer at the closing ceremony.
A very nice one. Thank you so much. I don't see the questions yet from the people. Just a second here.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of questions. There are some simple questions about a day in the Olympic preparation. How would you spend your day? But that's probably can come together with your next question is like, you went to UK after, I don't know which year, but you went to UK to study, and then you were continuing to sail. So how would you balance your studying and sporting career together? Because that's one of the most important questions these days. Everyone is really cautious about their studies because they don't want to be only sailors or only studying. They want to balance all these things. So could you share with us how you were balancing that, and how was your training day during the Olympic preparation?
To be honest, I wasn't very good in balancing the two, so I just focus on one thing at a time. When doing full-time campaign, a typical day will be 2 hours in the gym doing strength training, 2 or 3 hours on a road bike in order to improve our endurance as well as hiking strength. And then another 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 hours on the water, depending on the condition and what we work on. And in the evening, probably some treatment and then massage, therapy, etc., as well as in debrief with my coaches and watching videos of the day. So yeah, every day probably we need to train 5 to 8 hours or so, and have 1 or 2 days off a week. And when I went to study in the UK, I was just a full-time student. And even though for the real campaign, I went to the UK in 2014, but at that time I wasn't thinking about campaign for real. It was not until in August 2015 that I decided to come back again. So again, while studying, I just focus on sleep, but I would still carry on doing exercise and some fitness training, especially rehab for my injuries. And that's why in the summer of 2014, I feel my body's recovering well, and I would like to do another Olympic campaign, because there's no doubt the thing I want to do the most is sailing myself and compete myself. And then that also relates, I noticed a question from a Tony, you're going to compete in the Olympics 2021. Unfortunately, I'm not, because I just have many injuries from unscientific and overtraining in the past while in China. That's why I say learning English really helped me to know more about how to train properly, how to recover, how to eat healthily, and then how to do those sports psychology training, etc., which all contribute to me becoming the top sailor in the world. Otherwise, I can't imagine if I just stay training and sailing in China and just compete occasionally overseas. I don't see myself being able to reach to the top. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. So basically you were dividing things. When it was sailing, it was just sailing. When it was studying, it was just studying. So
I'm not a good example in this thing. So I'm trying to learn from the Western sailors, or yeah, for example, in the UK, I'm always amazed to see people are able to study and then training at the same time. For me, I wasn't able to do that, but I think study is very important. You can't give it up like we Chinese did, because it's so costly. And if we don't have the knowledge, especially when we were young, we had better memory. And to learn something, to equip ourselves with some special skills, we need to do that alongside doing Olympic campaign or sailing. Maybe you can spend 1 year full-time sailing, but for the full 4-year cycle, you can definitely do 2 things together for most of the time, like for 2 years or so. It's just a matter how you do the time management and how you compare, how you plan ahead. This is a goal achievable. And but I'm not in the stance, in a good stance to suggest people or to be a role model in this part, but I'm learning from British sailors as well.
To be honest, you say you're not a good example, but if you look at your sailing career, you always had 1 or 2 year gaps in the international level circuit, and you were doing something else, and then you were coming back just 2 years before the Olympics, and then you were performing. So that shows that you don't have to be 4 years all year around traveling. You can actually balance with a bit of time and spare for after the Olympic cycle, a year or 1.5 to do some studies and some other stuff, and just maintaining your fitness level. That's one of the way. You proved it for different reasons, but it worked because because of your injuries and because of health issues, you always had a year or 2 gaps. And you are still able to perform. That's showing the ability, because some people believe you have to be only sailing non-stop, and that's what brings you the results. It's not about that only. Thank you so much for sharing with us this stuff. A lot of people are questioning some stuff, but I think they can go into Q&A at the end. But I would ask you a valuable question for the new generation. Like, what would be your advice to start an Olympic campaign, and how to inspire them to go this route? Because you had a really strong goal from the beginning. Once you get your first medal, you want it for the second one. But some people, it's hard to get on this track. They see it as very difficult pathway to follow. What would your advice to be to the new Olympic sailors?
To be honest, I'm not the kind of girl, or I don't really have, to start with, I don't really have the personality of winning. And all I care the most is I can sail, and I enjoy sailing. And probably some reason was because the loss of my hearing. And then onshore, I just feel, oh, I'm not good at that, I'm not good at this. And then I've been despising that, and then be excluded by this. And it was only sailing that makes me feel, oh, I'm more like myself, and I have the opportunity to do normal things. So to be honest, I don't know whether that mentality is good or not. I always say enjoying is ahead of winning. And then for me, if I can enjoy, then I can carry on pushing myself hard, because I know somehow they two link together. But in my mind, I just feel if I set my goal of winning the Olympic Games, of course I will. But the power of the inner voice is not as strong as if I enjoy. And then somehow I got extra strength to push myself to go extra miles when the really difficult times, when really painful in hiking. I just want to, like, while enjoy, I have to sail fast to enjoy. Nobody will enjoy sailing slow and sailing at the back of the fleet. So that way of thinking gives me the extra horsepower to continue to carry on. And it was actually later I learned some sports psychology book that I tried to give myself more strong voice of winning. So for example, I will write down, I'm the 2012 London Olympic champion. And I also write down a few years earlier, before that, I'm the World Sailor of the Year. And then I just learned that by writing, by keep repeating those voices in your mind, it may help you push extra miles or give you an extra power to achieve something. I think I sort of practiced instead of coming naturally, having a winning mind. And but I think first and foremost, enjoy is the most important thing.
Thank you so much. To be honest, you're the second interviewer who is with the Olympic medals, and both of you had a pretty much the same answer to the question regarding the winning mentality. It's more about the process and enjoying the process of development rather than thinking about the ultimate result. And the whole route of improving, it actually brings people to the top instead of just thinking about the result and the outcome of the results.
Yeah.
So you say that you don't know the clear one, but we are just comparing with two Olympians interviews, and it's almost the same mentality, same approach, is the development and moving forward and setting up small challenges and climbing up it's more fun and bringing more results than the ultimate goal. I want to get a medal, just putting all this pressure and then not succeeding, rather than going through the whole journey in the positive mood. And that's where you are now. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite often compare with, for example, normal people study sailing or sporting is the same. The end result is like what marks you get after an examination, and that may mean something to other people, but for us, for people who are experiencing it, the process matters the most. It is the process which help us become a better person, a more skillful person, a more all-round sailor. That matters during the period of time. And though the end result is important, but if you see it over a lifespan journey, it is really the process that we are experience every day, every hour, every second. That counts, that matters. And we are the person who are experienced, whether that's the bitterness, the sweetness, the love and the cry. That's, I would say, far more precious than the end result.
And sailing is probably a sport which can facilitate a lot of these feelings in the fast track mode, and we can experience the whole life within a lifespan of 4 years, all the moods, everything, all the meetings. It's a really fast track version of the life. And thanks for sharing with us. There are a lot of questions here on the left-hand side of the chat, and most of the questions is related to a person who influenced on your medal, and a lot of questions about your coach and the coach who influenced your higher performances in London 2012 Olympics. It's John Emmett who was your coach, yeah?
Yeah. So people ask, oh yeah, training. Okay, yeah. The reason we paired together to do actually 2 Olympic campaign. First of all, was I read his book, and I felt that he not only have a lot of experience in laser radial sailing himself, because up until now, he's still sailing and competing actively apart from coaching himself. And secondly, he knows quite well about the venue in Weymouth, because that's his home, sort of second hometown or current hometown. And that's sort of meet all my criteria of finding a foreign coach alongside with my Chinese coach. And yeah, I started working with him to, first of all, is just 1 month trials, and then I felt we got on quite well. And then one of his strength was exactly because of he himself still sailing and competing. He knows exactly how we sailors feel, and he knows what's the most uptrends are, or any the best skills in the world, and the most advanced skills or knowledge or anything new in equipment, etc. It feels like he sort of knows everything, and then he really listens to sailors. Whereas for my past experience, I have to listen to my coaches and leaders, and then if I have any objection, I will get terribly punished or penalized. Whereas for John Emmett, he really trying to feel how I feel, and then listen to what I say, and then we to get on really well. And I think he helped me, for example, solve some of the injuries, and then improve some of my weaknesses. And I think, yeah, without him, again, it won't be possible for me to win the Olympic gold medal.
It's a good question, because these days we have a lot of coaching worldwide, which is like you have a foreign coach, but helping you to represent your nation. And was it easy to transfer to from the Chinese mentality coaching to the Western European style of coaching, or it was a little bit of shocker at the beginning?
I would say lots of shock, but the shock mainly comes from cultural differences. It's not like we all appreciate the work or any foreign coach or their attitude, because they, as a coach, we Chinese sailors or athletes, we can really see how professional they are, and they can really bring us some and help us improve. Whereas in China, maybe some Chinese coaches, they haven't even sailed a boat before. Some of the team leaders or leaders, they never sailed. They know nothing about sailing, but they are in charge of our sport. So that's quite difficult. And whereas to work alongside some foreign coaches, we have different habits, for example, different diet, and different practices, like these small things. But because we are all living together and eating together, training together, every so often we will get some shock. Oh, for us Chinese, oh, the Westerners are living like this and then eating like that, for example. But for in terms of professional training, sailing and racing, I really appreciate of every single foreign coaches they brought to me.
Thank you so much for sharing with us experience with your coach. And we are moving forward because the time is running, and we want to cover all the aspects of our meeting. A lot of people are actually questioning here, like, how are you earning on your living after the Olympic campaign? Now you stop sailing. Some people are still asking if you're going to sail in 2021, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to try for 2021. But what are you doing currently? And what's your new position in life, and how you move from your Olympic dream to what you are doing right now?
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, my dream will always be sailing and competing myself. But unfortunately, I have to face the reality that I had too many injuries that I owe to my body in my early years due to overtraining. And then it was after 2016 Rio Olympics. Actually, I was still very keen and motivated to carry on a campaign for 2020 Tokyo, even now it becomes 2021. Well, we still call it 2020 Tokyo, right? And then, but later on, after 2 years of therapy, and I even did operations on my shoulders, and I still had pain. So that's why I started to think about a career that won't be involved of intensive fitness or strength, etc. And then I was trying to think about what I would like to do. But all in a sudden, this media role popped out and even made me determined to change my subject. So originally I was studying management in Southampton Uni. And then I immediately changed. I feel, oh, instead of being a coach or being a leader, I feel I'm more interested in being a media person. And also in line with my dream of promoting this sport, not only in China, Asia, but also all over the world. I think I can bring more, especially to the Chinese, to let them know more about sailing and encourage more young people pick up this sport and enjoy closeness to nature and the freedom from sailing, etc. And that's why I decided to switch to another university, which is Solent Uni, because in Southampton University, they don't have this practical media courses. But then I still want to live in Southampton, because one of the reasons I chose to study in the UK was I really attracted of the rich legacy and atmosphere of sailing. And then being around Solent area, there are so many boat racing, and then originally I was really keen to do offshore and sailing around the world, especially with such a golden opportunity in the last Volvo Ocean race. Not only we have a Chinese team, but also they put forward a female rules, which encouraged to have more women sailors. But it's just my body is too fragile. Some people give me the nickname of Princess Glass, or like just like made of glass. They joke of me. They can't see I'm an athlete, a professional athlete, and why I'm so fragile. That's like what, yeah. That's part of my health issue now. But I quite happy to do what I'm doing now. I graduated from Solent Uni of that master degree in sports broadcast journalism, and then now I'm a sports media freelancer. And though the major media work I do are towards the Chinese, in other words, it's in Chinese language, but I do have an English podcast, which is for our class. I hope more people can subscribe and follow this. You can search Laser Sailing Podcast on any of the platform, at Apple, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, as well as SoundCloud, etc. And then I will release once a month, interviewing all the top laser and radio sailors, and hopefully to bring more top tips to you all.
Oh, that's so good. You didn't walk away from your main passion, sailing, and it's so good to hear that you are trying to push forward the sport itself, because it's definitely underestimated with the broadcasting, and it definitely needs more popularity in the public. And if people like you with all your achievements, and we're gonna mention the next achievement you actually earned in your life career, like being such a good presenter and being able to promote, hopefully it will grow the number of participants in our sport. But tell us a little bit about this pinnacle achievement that's not related to the sport. It's actually an appreciation from the world's community about all your previous achievements. And you've been nominated as a Rolex World Sailor of the Year in 2012. I think I even attended this presentation in Dublin in 2012. I was there as well, being part of the ISAF meeting, it was these days. And I remember you walking around in this fancy dress and really feeling a little bit stressed about the whole different kind of world. Tell us a little bit about your story there.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you won't believe that was actually the first formal dress I wore in my life, because in the past I was just being sort of confined in the team and not doing any socializing, no partying at all. That's what my coach John Emmett said. You only sell. I was so envious that towards the end of every event they go out partying and drinking and then have a bit of fun, but I would never be allowed to do that by the team. And then sometimes even missing the opening or closing ceremony, which is a pity. But moving back to the topic, of course I feel very honored to get that World Sailor of the Year award. I remember when I was young, I was so inspired by some of the previous winners, like Caroline, even Paige Rayleigh, Siren Sangbi, for example. Every single of them are role models, and I learned something from them and try to motivate myself even further. So yeah, that's how I also started to write down. I remember when I first to write down as what the psychology book suggested, I find it's so far away, it won't be possible. How come it will happen on me? And then gradually I started to become more believing myself. So yeah, these little things, they all contribute, and then later on I feel, well, I will work on it, And yeah, later on, when it really become a reality, I feel, wow, I'm so lucky. And it reminds me also for Pavlos Contidas, who won the world championship as well as this title. He said himself, he wrote it down as well 7 years before he actually won the title. How amazing. Yeah, try to write down your goals every single day. It may help. It won't guarantee, but it will definitely help to make your inner voice more powerful and make yourself to believe in yourself, in your ability, and then give you extra motivation to work towards it.
Thank you so much. And we'll just finish with the main thing is you published a book about your biography, and you just quickly just give a feedback about what did you write there, because I had this book somewhere around, but I handed it to one of the Chinese expat sailor to read it, and he flew away with that book. So I was going and searching for it, but he actually took it away to inspire him with your story. I wish I get it again, but then I have to buy it. But you should tell us about this book, because it's a really good biography, and it's really good sporting book. There is a lot of good feedback about how to inspire the athletes themselves, not only in sailing, for other sports as well. It's a really good book, and you should mention
Yeah, I wrote my English autobiography during the year when I was studying in Southampton Uni, and I was actually approached by an English publisher who was really interested about my experience. I think actually it's more a common people's reading, so to let people know more about the Chinese way of training, the Chinese sports system, as well as our culture. That will include, or maybe make you understand more why I would say lots of culture shocks or culture clashes, and how different the China is to the rest of the world, and then also my personal story, my family, as well as my grown up. And then I shared some good experience alongside some bad experience. I think by reading the biography, by reading my autobiography, you can get some extra probably inner strength to help you get even more motivated for your own dream. So good luck, everyone. Hope you can enjoy whatever you are doing, and then make the most of this lockdown time, and maybe just to improve your fitness even more. Because one of the story I'd like to mention briefly is I broke my hand 6 months before the Olympics in London during a cycle session, and then I had to stop sailing for 3 months. So I don't know whether I can campaign properly, and I don't know whether I can appear or compete at the games. But I tried to be really positive, and then think about what I can do apart from a broken hand. So every day I do indoor static cycling 3 hours, and really focus on improving my fitness, and then as well as doing meditation just as I was sailing on the water. And interestingly, 3 months later, I won the World Cup in year with the whole weeks of Mistral, which is strong wind. So we can really make the most of this unusual time, and then turning out to be a stronger person afterwards. So yeah, be positive and find the beauty behind it, because everything, I'm sure there are some positive side, a silver lining side.
Thank you so much, Lily, for your time with us. I think a lot of people enjoyed your story, and to be in live in contact with you, there are a lot of questions which we mostly covered, and there is one or two questions. If you are going to get back on the water, there are a lot of your followers are missing you on the water. So you don't think about going on the water time to time just to do some races, or you're completely stopped?
I think well, you could really think about racing your mind, and then maybe during this time, I'm not very good in e-sailing, but a lot of my friends, they are doing e-sailing, and then some even commented it's very useful to improve their decision making, because it's a much faster race. And then yeah, maybe I should yeah, if you are interested in those e-sailing, give it a go, and then it help
I
you.
also advise to some of my sailors to take a practice in this game, because it actually helps you to work on your competitive side. You still need to compete there. You still need to think about your tactics and strategy. You have to control the elements of the wind. I think it's a great game. We never had such an opportunity in the old days to simulate any of our competitions. It's only on the water. But here it's really engaging our head about the racing stuff. And I encourage the people, but unfortunately the kids are not really interested to race. They prefer to do some Candy Crush or some other stuff rather than do the serious racing on the water, but hopefully it will change.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lily, for all your time. It was great motivational speech, and hopefully people were happy. And we will hear from you more in your broadcasting and in your Spotify channels. So we will start to follow you and see what you are doing.
You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search 徐丽加11, or just search name, it should pop out. And then if you have any questions or any suggestion for my podcast, feel free to leave me a comment. And then I'm more than happy to answer you when I see it. Thank you again for today's webinar, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And then maybe I'll see many of you face to face after this COVID-19 situation.
Thank you, Lily, once again. And I just want to mention for the people who are following our webinars that we are continuing on next Thursday with the top 10 rule tips with Ewan McGregor, who is going to be our judge advisor, who is going to help us to understand where we need to approach on the race course and how to understand the rules. Next Tuesday, I'm running the technical webinar for the starting preparation and technical approaches of how to start. And next Thursday, we're going to have another guest. It's actually going to be John Emmett, who is the coach of Lily, and he's going to give us some top tips about some stuff. We are going to discuss it later on, what exactly going to mention. But thank you for following us, and hopefully to see you all again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again.